The rain has stopped. Crazy. The amount of rain that came down the last couple days was absolutely insane. A friend of mine who owns the fishing lodge where my boat is at, he posted up yesterday that the wind was blowing 44 knots on the point around the corner. Nasty. BC Ferry shut down yesterday. All hell broke loose. The river rose right up and looks like a chocolate milkshake. That sucks. But anyway, you guys smashed the shit out of the DNA study request for donations to, hopefully, they were hoping to reach $20,000, and I checked this morning and you guys smashed it out of the park and exceeded their goal. Good for everyone. Isn't it great? Now, hopefully get on with it rapidly and share with us what the hell's going on. So that's a good thing. So moving along, but it sure is cool to see the power of the people, right? When the people decide they are going to do something, they do it. Amazing, right? And a kind of a little bit of a side topic, short babble this morning. But I usually scan. I will get up, have my coffee, and I'll quickly glance at what the handful of people I at times listen to, see what they're talking about this morning. I also look for a pattern for the topic at hand, if it's important enough for my attention for me to watch and see what's up as I watch the world spinning. And I was thinking about it. Apparently France is really going off the chart right now, protesting. They're pretty good at protesting over there. And apparently they stormed the office of BlackRock, and if you've done any digging, BlackRock's possibly one of the world global leaders in chaos and darkness. But anyway, I didn't really have any time or patience for listening to people pointing shit out today. So I had one of those days where I'm a little bit tired of it. People pointing, point it out, 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 point it out. Doesn't stop. Getting back to doing something, which we have made an example of doing something here, right? We did something, we got it done. And I was thinking about action, remedies. How do you fix shit? Bad stuff. One way they could fix very rapidly is if somebody or a group of people could possibly, now just picture this one for a minute. I don't care what country you're in or where you are, but imagine if there's a group of people controlling you, your community, or your state, your province, your country, whatever, and you needed them to stop. All the people would have to do is stop. That's it. The community, the society, the country, all you'd have to do is stop. The people would just have to stop. Stop working. Stop. Stop working. Stop policing. Stop everything. Stop. Just stop dead in your tracks. And put all your focus on the culprits at hand and say, hey, no more. That doesn't mean screaming, lighting fires, breaking windows in shops. It doesn't mean doing anything. It just means stop. Right? You would instantly strip the power and control from anybody who may be abusing it. Instantly gone. Just like that. Maybe, like I was mentioning a little while earlier, about if all of the people who were influencing people and showing them the truth about what's going on in various places around the planet today, if they were all to get together and come up with a remedy and some action, that would be so effective, it would be mind-boggling. It wouldn't mean you'd have to travel somewhere to go protest. We're not even allowed to protest in Canada anymore. It's illegal. Right? It's illegal now to protest. They're making it illegal that you cannot say anything bad about the government online or you're going to get your ass fined off. So imagine what would happen once they caught wind of the people organizing the people to stop. I think that could be effective. I would actually eagerly, actively partake in that. I would, without a doubt. What would we do? What would we have to do, you guys? Maybe stock up on enough food to last, I don't know, maybe just a week. It wouldn't take long. It would not take long. Right? Just grab enough food, whatever you need for at least a week. Help your neighbors if they can't pull it off. Help your neighbors, help your community pull it off. And then we go, all right, now we're going to stop. Put on the brakes, stop. Everything stops. Everything stops. That would be amazing. That would be so amazing and absolutely awesome to watch. Maybe somebody should at least just make a movie about that, to give the people a heads up and give the people an idea, right? Give the people a little bit of motivation to pull it off. That would be absolutely freaking awesome. No screaming, no yelling, no painting signs and standing on the lawn of your legislature or your government building. No having to go somewhere in a bus. Just stop. Just stop. Just turn around, go home, and stop. Imagine the looks on their faces of those dirty pricks as they realized, whoa, 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 whoa. I am instantly useless. Instantly. You would instantly render those controlling bastards, evildoers, useless. Just like that. All you have to do is stop. There you go. There's my little thought this morning as my brain tries to figure out how the hell we can solve a lot of the grief going on today. It's cool that you guys smashed the shit out of that DNA study request. Pretty easy, wasn't it? Probably wasn't an easy task for Melba at first when she started it, thinking, well, she's probably thinking to herself, I wonder how long this is going to take, especially because of all the dirty, filthy bastards that went against me and tried to attack my character and run me to the ground. I wonder if this is even, she's probably thinking, I wonder if this is even going to work. Oh yeah, it worked. The good guy army came to the call and smashed it the frickin' hell out of the park. Bam! Just like that. What did it take you guys, a week? Moving along, let's hear some voices. Keep this ball rolling, keep this group growing. Eventually, a Sasquatch story is the title of this email. Hi, I've subscribed to your channel today and I've been listening to stories you read while I do other things here today. I'm 71, I'm originally from the Ozarks. I've spent time in Alaska and the Pacific Northwest and now live in Indiana. I've had what some would call a paranormal encounter since I was 5. When I tell people about these things, I'm automatically shifted into the crazy category. Not anymore. I've learned to not say much to anybody, and I'm very much a hermit now because the paranormal is so much a part of my life that it will easily slip in any conversation I have. I have several times felt compelled to tell some of my stories to authors and researchers who talk about similar things, but I've rarely been taken seriously because, for the most part, the things that have happened to me have been beneficial in the long run, even though in the bad old days I was often terrified when such events intruded into my life. I'm used to it now, and if you're not terrified and don't need psychotherapy to deal with all this, you are classed as a nutcase and shunned. I'm a very skeptical and pragmatic person, but I still believe in many things other people do not, because I've had personal experience with those things. I've had to prove these things to myself over the years by involving other people in them, because my thinking was that if I'm the only one seeing such things, and I'm the only one having these experiences, then I'm crazy, and should take the pills. But other people do share these events on occasion, and I assume even more events are true, even though I can't verify them all. In the years when I wrote regularly online about paranormal subjects, I ran into quite a lot of people who actually were crazy. And I also encountered many who were fake experiencers with interesting stories designed to draw traffic to the websites. One well-known forum I visited must have staff writers posting accounts as new members because the writing style is so similar with one to the next that it has to be written by the same person. The only reason for that, in my opinion, is to drum up business for the website. Please don't misunderstand me when I say this next bit, because I have no reason to think you are making up stories, and I do appreciate your openness, and your channel has my attention now. But already I am seeing a writing style repeating over and over. Stories emailed to you by different people have the same language and patterns, the same descriptive flair. I'm a writer myself, ex-journalist now, and I pick up these things quickly. I don't know why anyone would be feeding you false stories. I don't see any possible monetary gain in that unless you personally were a fraud, and I don't think you are. YouTube would not have staff dedicated to that. The only other possibility I would take seriously is disinformation, and this seems like an odd way to do it. Not all the stories you've received fit this pattern, but quite a few do fit. Maybe some are submitted as a way of muddying the waters to confuse the real encounters. There's another channel on YouTube that tells stories sent in by forest rangers who tell about encounters with wolfmen and dogmen and werewolves. It's the same pattern over and over, and the YouTuber even says he would like to get away from that and talk about other things. Somebody keeps swamping him with these stories. If they are true stories, then that is incredibly fascinating. And if they are fake stories, then why would anyone spend that amount of time doing that? Seems like there's no reward. Yeah, and that's actually why you just keep smashing forward, and I would suggest that you just shrug it off, because I mean, I am the one with all the emails on this channel receiving them, and myself, I haven't noticed what you are noticing. Myself, I haven't. Possibly, maybe you have a little seed in the back of your brain that's telling you to look for that, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but our theme is take from it what you will or leave it. And we always, I hope to encourage people here to use their intuition, their gut instinct, and see through the BS themselves. Not have somebody like me or somebody else decide what they're going to hear or not. Because if you do that, how are you going to help somebody's sixth sense, their intuition, their gut instinct, whatever you want to call it? How do you help that mature in somebody if you govern for them instead of letting them govern, right? So I read everything, unless it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, I've had some emails that were long, written out, well written, and then once it got into the goods, it was like, you prick. And then I just don't share it. But that's very rare. But anyway, the key to it is I would suggest, don't even worry about it. Who cares? Keep smashing forward. It's like fishing. You cast, nothing. You cast, nothing. You cast, nothing. Nothing, 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 nothing. Maybe even for the whole day, nothing. But it's still fun. You still do it. And then all of a sudden, bam, you get that huge trout. You catch a fish. It works. Maybe that works as a description here. Maybe it doesn't. But do you see what I mean? Each email is a cast. It's a cast. It's a cast. It's interesting. It's fun to do. It's interesting to watch. It's a cast. And then eventually we get the bam! Holy cow. You know what I mean? So it's just part of the process. We have to do it. We have to read every single one. We have to go forward, smash through, kick to the side what's not useful to us individually, and grab what is useful. Anyway, I hope that made sense. I hope that helped in a way. Let's get back to you. Sorry. Before I start babbling. Excuse me. Side note. The story from the fella from the St. Louis area told about encountering the Sasquatch down by the river was also emailed to Campfire blank on YouTube. The version you received has grown a bit. Now the Sasquatch has mental conversations with the fellow and showed him a mental map of his origin point. Makes me a bit skeptical of that one, because I don't trust stories that keep growing as they are retold. I'm a Vietnam vet and have met quite a lot of Vietnam vets who got their stories straight out of movies like Apocalypse Now. They've told them so many times they believe the stories actually happened to them. People like that can be completely sincere in what they're saying, even when none of it is true. I have to throw in some info about the Dakini, Dakini, giants from ancient times who played a fundamental role in Tibetan Buddhist traditions. The Dakini were much larger than humans, sometimes had dark or sometimes blue skin. They came from the outer heavens, and sometimes were said to have came here from islands in the sky. They were very, very passionate and violent, enjoyed hunting and killing humans to eat. They made trophy belts of human skulls and wore the belts as they danced naked around their campfires. They kidnapped women for sexual purposes and sometimes befriended people and taught them impossible skills. The Dakini were supernatural as well as physical. Could levitate and become invisible and communicate telepathically. They could displace a person's soul and take over the body, and they could reanimate the dead. The Dakini taught those things to humans, and then about 10,000 years ago they went away into the sky, back to the outer heavens. It's a very similar story to the one about Nibiru, N-I-B-U-R-U. So far as I know, the Dakini were not hairy. Otherwise, a lot of this sounds like a bit like Bigfoot. Maybe you never heard of them myself yet. On to my Bigfoot story. A year or so before I moved to Indiana from the Ozarks, there was a Bigfoot sighting in Greencastle, Indiana. Look up Greencastle, Indiana Bigfoot, and you'll find quite a few stories from the local newspaper. The banner graphic about local researchers and patterns of sightings in southern Indiana. One sighting took place within Greencastle city limits, and I think that was back in 2011, but I couldn't swear to it. The sighting and the consequences made national news, as well as gaining lots of airtime on Art Bell's radio show, Coast to Coast. Whitley Strieber, the author of Communion, designated this part of Indiana as one of the mystery triangles. Linda Moulton Howe referred to this locale as a zone of high strangeness. Many people took this sighting completely seriously, and local hunters were trying to capture Bigfoot by hanging used menstrual napkins and music CDs in trees above traps and snares. Nice. When I moved here, I eventually got a night shift job in town and was on duty with another person for the shift. And we would sit and tell stories and walk the rounds and try not to fall asleep. One fellow I worked with briefly told me his Sasquatch story from the time of the great event, the sighting in Greencastle. That evening he had gone to a local bar with two female friends, and as they were sitting at their table tossing back a few, he told them an entirely fictional account of how he had been sitting in his kitchen early that evening when he was suddenly overcome by a feeling of intense dread. When he turned slowly to face the kitchen window, he saw the hairy face of a giant Sasquatch staring into the room at him. It must have been 10 feet tall, he said, with red eyes. As he was talking to the two wide-eyed young ladies, he noticed that other people in the bar were also hanging on every word he said. And from time to time, individuals or pairs of men would suddenly get up and rush to the door. Later that night, the streets of Greencastle were patrolled by parties of armed men rolling through town in pickup trucks with shotgun-wielding Sasquatch hunters standing behind the cabs. I have no reason to not believe in Bigfoot, but I also have no reason to think this man was a liar. Moral of the story might be to be careful what you say in bars. I've lived here over 20 years now. For an area of high strangeness, it seems pretty quiet. Jimmy. And that's it. Alright, I'm on the fence about even posting this one, Jimmy. We just rocked out about, I don't know how many minutes of time, and it didn't really help anybody or you, right? We'll let this one ride this time. See how the crowd receives it. Moving on. Idaho mystery and more. Hi Steve, you can use my name just to let you know all these folks writing in about their savvy experiences don't just contribute to the knowledge that savvy exists, but their experiences are also very useful for determining what a person should and should not do when having a close encounter. So thanks to you and all who write in. I've had two experiences. The first one of which occurred on a mule deer hunt in the mountains of Idaho above Pocatello. This was back in '72. And I had very little knowledge of such a being at the time, even though I've spent a massive amount of time in the woods and up a tree stand. Two friends, Rich and Mary, and another young man who worked for them named Dwayne, invited me to join them. We used Rich and Mary's Ford Bronco to get up an old logging road trail and camp near some beaver ponds. There was snow on the ground, but partially melted and very crunchy. It was cold camping. We were huddled around a nice fire when it got dark, preparing to leave camp in the early morning on foot to climb up where Dwayne said the mule deer liked to hang out. We began hearing very heavy bipedal footsteps, and whatever it was seemed to be circling us and our fire. As the fire died down, the footsteps seemed to close in. When we built the fire back up, they seemed to move farther away. None of us had the slightest clue what it could be. At least 4 to 5 times I jumped up with my flashlight to see what it was, but it was a moonless night. On the last try, I saw something gray dive down behind a slight rise in the ground, but it was just a momentary flash of fur/hair and no details. It was way too cold for bear and to be out and about, and the only thing I could think of was a wolf. But at that time, wolves had not been reintroduced. Besides that, whatever it was had a heavy, firm footfall. After that, near a glimpse, we didn't hear it again, and we all hit the sack for tomorrow's hunt. Had I known then what I know now, I'd have checked for tracks, but savvy wasn't a subject taken seriously back then, so I never considered savvy a possibility. We hunted for 2 days before we all had to pack up and go to work. I'm pretty certain I know what it was. I live in Southern Oregon now, and about 2 years ago, my wife and I decided to take our 19-foot camping trailer up Highway 62 past Union Creek for a little camping getaway. We turned left onto a logging road and found a great spot to camp near a small creek. We had the place all to ourselves and our 3 yellow labs. I was so busy setting up the awning and arranging everything that I really wasn't paying attention to my surroundings. But after everything was done and the firewood gathered, I sat down in one of our chairs outside. My wife Liz was inside the trailer getting organized. It was only then that I realized something was amiss. Those Oregon woods are usually teeming with big woodpeckers, squirrels, and jays, and they tend to make a lot of racket, but not there. The silence was deafening and completely unnatural, to the point that when my wife came out to join me, I brought it to her attention and told her there is a presence here. By that time I did know about Sabe, and I didn't like the feeling I was getting. We both heard something rustling the leaves on top of the ridge across the logging road from our campsite, but couldn't make out what it was. There are a lot of black-tailed deer and elk in that area, but they usually don't make much noise. Bears don't either. And there weren't any other campers around. The rest of that evening, I had my 45-70 Marlin guide gun in my hand, across my legs, or right next to me, until we retired for the evening. Our labs were sleeping in our camper shell in the bed of our truck outside, and at one point they began barking very aggressively. Late evening or early morning. As much as we both loved that spot, we broke camp the next morning after breakfast and headed home. There was something very creepy going on there. I've never seen a savvy clearly. I've never smelled anything that was already dead out there. Sorry. I've never smelled anything that wasn't already dead out there. I've never seen an 18-inch track, and I've never heard a primal scream. But those 2 experiences left me little doubt because they were so unnatural. The strange dead silence was the giveaway. Thanks to your contributors, I'm pretty sure I know what caused it. Take care, Carl F. Warden. Carl, appreciate you, man. Good to hear you're on it, meaning your senses, and taking note and reacting correctly, right? Good work. Make sure you email us back again if you learn of something that's going to help the people, all right? Knowledge, whatever you got. Come across more, you send it in, all right? Don't stop going out in the woods. Excuse me. My experience with the Sasquatch Part 2. Uh-oh, I wonder where Part 1 is. Oh, shit. This actually really does start typing from an original story. What do I do now? It's a long one. All right, I'll put it to the side, and I'll hopefully I will find the first part, and then we'll come back and read it again. That sucks. All right, what do we got here? Maybe some things to roll around the brain box. I don't know if there's any room. Excuse me. Hello, Steve. You can share my name, Daryl Sumter II. Okay, Steve, I've watched your channel since mid-2021. I find the fact that you're helping so many people in the world by sharing their experiences with things in this world that have been stripped from our knowledge is greatly appreciated. I've never had direct encounters with the people of the woods. I was told by multiple people that my father had a few encounters. And once a rock fell out of nowhere between my father and I while sitting on his porch. That day he and I were the only people awake at that time, that day, and Dad lived almost 20 miles out of town, so no neighbors. It puzzled my dad and me, but we couldn't explain and carried on with our day. You asked a question about how to remove the control of, and then it ends. Daryl Sumter, email me your email in again and email the whole thing, all right? Because it came chopped. That sucks. Things happen in threes, right, you guys? Let's see how this next email goes. Sasquatch is real. From another military guy with high clearance is the title of this email. Sounds familiar. I've been watching your content a lot and finally wrangled up the courage to say something. First account. I initially enlisted in the military as Spec Ops. I graduated the initial in-doc course and went on completing the other courses to graduate to be a full-fledged PJ. We had to have top secret clearance, and this would later on bite me in the ass. One of the courses is SERE/Survival School in the Spokane, Washington. We have classroom training for about a week, spend some time in the mountainous woods in the northeast quadrant of the state, can't disclose how long, practicing the survival methods and strategies we have been taught, mostly by ourselves, and then at some point end up in POW camp. Also can't disclose the length of time. While doing the evading portion, tromping around the woods and trying to survive on minimal things. We were in typical buddy teams, 2 people having to make daily check-ins. A couple days after we had been released to be on our own, my buddy and I were quietly hiking a game trail along the side of a drop-off to our left. When we were walking, one after the other, and stepping in one another's tracks to reduce prints as much as possible, I came across a dense patch of mulberries and turned to my buddy behind to let him know we were going to take a break and hunker inside the patch and snack. When I turned, I saw what looked to be a large, hairy calf and foot disappear in the bushes behind my bud. I have hunted and fished most of all the U.S., and I have never seen anything like that in my life. It was not a bear. It was too tall and too large. It had a prominent heel. The hair on the back of my neck stood up so tall that my scalp almost hurt. I continued, walked backwards down the trail. I must have looked off because my buddy asked what's wrong and I couldn't talk. Once we had a little distance and I could talk, I whispered, "We have to get out of this area now." We picked up our pace and made it down the ravine and back up another mountain before making camp at the checkpoint. It took me that whole time to try and put together in my head what I had seen. While telling him, he snickered and said it was a black bear and brushed it off. Next day was uneventful and we made it to the next checkpoint. While making camp, we heard an eerie, growling howl several times with about 10-minute breaks in between. My hair stood on end again and I quickly looked at my buddy, and he nodded and whispered, "I believe you now." Needless to say, we didn't sleep much the rest of the trip and finished to the final checkpoint. Second account. I was injured and had to choose whether to get out of the military for medical or stay in and fill a needed position. I chose to be a chef over being a cop. Sorry, security forces. Since I already had a top secret clearance, where it bit me in the ass, I was sent to Minot Air Force Base to cook out in the missile fields. We've heard that. Minot Air Force Base. I've read that name before. There are missile alert facilities, MAFs, that control the number of missiles. This is similar to the story you told that made me come out. Well, there you go. I don't want to give too many details about the sites and layouts. I will say the story similar to this one was off, and hopefully that was to keep guarded secrets of these sites. Anyway, at the MAF there is a head cop at the command office that will send out groups of 4 cops out to patrol the missile fields in his/her area. They do this 24/7 and respond to alarms from the missile perimeter fences. The fences around the missiles and the MAFs are 10 feet high with 3 strands of barbed wire across the top. Usually the alarms are animals or snow drifting on the fencing or gates causing them to move just enough. But there has been the weird instance when people would dump their garbage over the fence or tree huggers try to break in and vandalize or chain themselves to the fences. So every call out to a site was a serious one. Excuse me. These cops also have security clearances and patrol in full gear and armed. One night I was done with my duties, and I was hanging out in the control office with one of the cops, and an alarm went off at one of the sites. Like firefighters, the patrol cops suited up, putting their flak vests and layers of clothing on. It was snowing that night and about 20 degrees. The group of four headed out into the darkness. The taillights almost disappeared before they reached the end of the 200-yard driveway. They made their way toward the site. About 30 minutes later, they were turning onto the driveway to the missile site. The entire way making radio contact as to what was going on. If anyone knows Humvee headlights, they aren't great. And the pole light at the missile site gave little illumination as well. They slowly drove up to the gate. They radioed in that it looked like someone dumped a few garbage bags on the back side of the site. 3 got out to go into the site and retrieve the bags. The driver stayed in and on the radio. As they were unlocking the gate, the pile raised up. It stood up. The driver could be heard saying, "What is that?" Then honking, then yelling, "Come back, come back." You could hear the other cops quickly getting back in the truck. One of the cops said, "That thing was almost as tall as the fence." Another said, "I've never seen something clear a fence like that." Then the group requested a fire team for backup because they wanted to see where it went. Once the fire team and a supervisor arrived, they trekked to the back of the site. They were wading in a snow path up to their belly buttons and accounted that even though they could barely see as the creature ran into the darkness, the snow looked to be up to its knees. They followed the path maybe 40 yards, and with snow falling, poor visibility, and terrible headlamps and flashlights, they returned to the truck and then head back to the MAF. They filled the control office cop in on what happened, and I made sure I stayed to hear the parts we didn't get to hear over the radio. Like the first story you told about the missile fields, these are also typically flat and desolate. This particular area butted up to the Badlands, and I believe something could live and hide down through the ravines and fingers of that area. I hope this doesn't fall on a dead ear. I just wanted to verify the weirdness of Sasquatch and the military having run-ins with the creature. Thanks for your time, Brant W. Thanks for my time. Thanks for your time, dude. Brant, absolutely appreciate that. And that did sound familiar when I started to read it. Wow. So many military bases have visits. So many. Here's another one. Another one with the title, Elk Herds, Military Bases Restricted Access. Another one. Everybody's listening here, right? Everybody is here listening across the board. It doesn't matter the profession, where we are not a certain group of human beings. We are everybody. Everybody's here. Everybody is here listening, learning, and chiming in and sharing. Let's scroll to the bottom of this. It's got some photos we've shared here before. I wonder what's going on here. Because this was sent April 7th. I guess I'll start with our first experience. I was driving a semi hauling gravel. So I was making the trip 5 times a day. So on trip up, what they called Trapper's Loop, the last grade as you go over the summit to the truck loaded. The truck loaded was slow down, pulling hard. I seen something move. I seen something on 2 legs take 1 step and duck below the scrub oak and disappear. Its shoulders were above the trees and it looked like Patty. Now, if you remember the picture of the woman being watched by something while using the solar shower camping, I'll include the picture. I want to tell you about the range of mountains this was in. There's been 2 other stories you've read on this same range in Utah. Most of the range is owned by Kennecott Copper Mine, so a lot of the range isn't accessible by the public. There's also a large elk herd. It's a once-in-a-lifetime draw permit on the north end, where the bulls die of old age. Where we live is the old canyon road that dead ends since the reservoir was built in the 60s. There's 1 house above us, then a gate for access to the power station and water tanks, with the dam a 1/4 mile above us. We walk our dog in this area. One day I seen what I thought was a man walking down the ridge quickly. Didn't think much of it other than the speed it was moving. The next time walking, I saw a deer by the one tree that is on the ridge. The deer weren't as tall as the tree, but what I saw was almost twice the height of the tree. Then one day my wife was walking with the dog, and a large rock fell into the road behind her. She thought it was odd, but kept going. Then she was hit in the middle of the back. Not hard, not a big rock. We listen to the stories you read, so she said, I don't want to do you no harm, just leave me alone, please. And nothing else happened. Then another time she drove up to the reservoir and parked on this high spot that you could see the water good. Well, she sees what looks like a man scooping water with his hand and drinking it. She thought, what's he doing drinking that water? As soon as she thought that, it looked up at her and stood up. She couldn't believe how massive he was, and he turned back 2 steps and was gone. Years ago, they put up a gate about halfway up this canyon and a toll gate at the entrance, and now most of the canyon can only be accessed by horse or on foot. Makes you wonder what the government knows and if that's why. It's blocked off now. I don't know if I should say where this range is, but why not give people a clue? The open pit mine can be seen from space, so we have large military bases around here and large herds of elk and restricted public access. I don't give a crap what people believe, so use my... What the hell's a mosquito doing in here? So use my name if you wish, Ken Spires. Oh, we are brothers in that I have a 67 Firebird. Do yourself a favor and take your car for a ride. Oh, I found another picture taken the same day as the other. One to refresh memories. I had taken the pictures years before I seen anything in them. Never saw anything that day or smelled anything. I know it's just another blurry picture, I know it's just another blurry picture that some won't see anything, but since we never saw anything, maybe the camera saw through the cloak. Keep your guns clean and loaded. Thank you for what you do. You should throw one of your hats my way for sharing my story, LOL. I'll be watching you. For you only. One time you're up. Okay, sorry. Okay, man, gotcha. Alright, and there's those pictures. Totally remember the pictures. I'll post them up again for sure. Thanks for that email. It's funny when you say you're not sure if you should mention the area. Mention it, man. Mention it. We're all running out of time. We're all going to be dead one day. There's no sense in keeping secrets from anybody now, right? Secrets are possibly what got us into this big mess to start with. Not this mess, but many other ones of missing knowledge. People having their lives turned upside down. There's another pattern to mention to everybody. I'm sure you're picking up anyways, but when his wife looked, saw, and thought while looking at that person being, it shot up and looked right at her. Right? How's that for a pattern? When the human eyes and mind connect on that being, they stop dead and freeze, or they stop dead and turn and look you right in the eyes. How many times have we heard that happen? That is a very strong pattern that we need to take note of. And it's definitely a puzzle, right? That whole moment, that is a puzzle in itself. It needs to be figured out. How are they doing that? How are they so in tune? How can we be in tune just as effectively, right? How can we get on that same plane? I want to be there. I would love to be there. Because especially for me, being in the woods by myself, remote, all over the frickin' place, I wonder it would almost be confusing at times because you'd be looking around behind over your shoulder nonstop and a squirrel stares at you or a deer stares at you. Or do they have it in them to project those feelings? I don't know. But I would love to have that skill. But anyway, moving along. I gotta get moving. We got stuff to do. And quick note this morning, the dog went out. I took the dog out. Ruby comes in the house and she lays by the back door. And I took her outside. She's acting kind of weird. She's like looking. She usually wants to jump around and play with me right off the bat, the word go, but she didn't. She's like slowly walking around the backyard looking. I had her on a long lead. I'm watching, what's up? And she walked straight from the back, all the way up to the back fence, under the trees there. I'm like, okay, what's she on to? But her nose wasn't to the ground. It was kind of weird. And she's just looking. Walking and looking. And she's never done that. And then she hung a left and started walking the property line. Doing the same thing. But she's not nose to the ground. And then she hung a left in the other far corner, started doubling back a bit. And I'm like, all right, that's enough of this. I thought maybe she had to go to the bathroom, whatever. It didn't work out. So I turned her around, and then she wanted to jump out through the fence where the deer and the bears have knocked the top barbed wire in half. I stopped her from doing that. We don't want her doing that. And then we got back to the house, and I clipped her line on the pole on the back porch. And then she walked straight away from me again, just stood there. And I'm like, all right, that's enough. Time for me to pick up on what's going down and look around. So it's not raining this morning, but everything's absolutely soaking wet. And the grass is like very minimal, long, but it's enough to hold the dew, the raindrops. I look down, and here's some blatant prints. Look to be going away from the house, straight across. And we have a hot tub outside on the edge of the deck. And those prints were right from the hot tub going, it seemed to be going straight away to the back fence this way. Whereas when I left the back porch, I was 15 feet to the left. And we went that way with the dog. It wasn't me. And it was obviously since it stopped raining. I don't know what time it stopped raining. So I'm like, what the hell is that? Is that a bear? Looked to be possible bear, but then I started walking down. It looked like large, potentially large boot prints, maybe. It's kind of confusing because it's just water knocked off the grass. But no big stride, obviously. Not in line, no big stride, right? I thought maybe bear, but the dog would have been on her nose, would have been straight to the ground if it was a bear. Then I walked our entire property. I found no prints entering. What? So there's no prints crossing the fence entering anywhere. I saw a couple of weird long drag marks, maybe 2 feet across, 2 feet wide, parallel, coming just off the corner of the house. That's another 10, 15 feet back to where these tracks started. And I don't know what it is. A little confusing. Really odd, right? I did notice in the tree at the back at the top, we noticed the other night, and I should go take a look at it, knock it down, but there's a branch up there, a dead branch, no bark on it, and there's 3 live pine trees. And it seems to be about like that big. And it looks to be about maybe 8 feet long, and it's laying on top of branches up there, about 30 feet up. We're glancing up there, and I'm like, how the hell did that get there? I'm looking at the tops of the trees. Nope, it didn't fall off any one of those trees. It's a little weird. The nearest tree is about, I don't know, 30 feet to the left. But anyways, thought I'd make those mentions. Again, it's kind of useless here, but it's fresh in my brain this morning and a little odd. So now I'm going to have to throw down some cameras around my property, stealthily, where if it's a human, they're not going to see them. I always set all my trail cameras so that humans don't see them, always, because I don't want them stolen. And humans are pretty simple, in a way. In the real world, in the woods, humans are too easy. Too easy to catch on film, too easy to hide your cameras from. Too easy. So I'll set some cameras up and see what's up. But it's just really weird to see the single line set of prints unless somebody crossed the fence, walked straight to the back of our house in the hot tub and peered into the back door, but the dog didn't sense it and didn't go crazy. What's up with that? Unless she was out cold. She's still young, who knows? And then the only way they could have pulled that off is if they stepped in the same prints to get back the way they came in. That's the only way. But it's a mystery, right? I'll get to the bottom of it. If it is a human being being very, very stupid, well, we'll be putting an end to that pretty quick. Hopefully it isn't. Who needs grief and their property from whacked out humans, right? And this definitely isn't the place to decide to be a nutcase. This isn't the correct neighborhood to do that. It's just not. It's not. It wouldn't be a very, very good outcome for somebody who's doing that intentionally. So, we'll see what it's going to be. Yeah, there's no way it was a bear. There's no way it was a bear. He would have been going all over the backyard, sniffing all the bones left over from the wintertime for the dogs chewing on their bones and stuff. But anyway, that's what's going on here. I'm babbling. I gotta go. Congratulations to everybody. Great work. Smashing the shit out of that GoFundMe link for the DNA study. I can't wait to see the results of that. And possibly think about what I said. Think about what I said. And actually visualize everybody just stopping. Same time, stop. Boom. Will that be amazing? Picture the looks on the faces of the people who are abusing control. Picture the looks on their faces. What are they going to do now? What are we going to do now? Everybody just stopped. Right? Picture it. Wouldn't that be great? That'd be so sweet. Okay, continue having a great, super happy and safe Easter long weekend. I'll be back tomorrow.